Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here with another PTS update from the Markarth DLC. And in this video, I want to talk specifically about one of the new mythic items. That's going to be the Ring of the Pale Order. And is this ring going to be meta now for essentially everything in the game? There's been a lot of discussion on the PTS forums talking about how this is the most powerful item ever in the history of ESO and how it basically deletes healers from the game. So I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about the potential for solo builds using this item as well. But let's check it out first and see what it does. So Ring of the Pale Order is the new mythic item, one of two new mythic items from the Markarth DLC. It is a ring. It is bloodthirsty with a stamina recovery enchantment. And the bonus here, restore 15% of the damage you deal as health, but you cannot be healed by anyone but yourself. So firstly, let's talk about the potential here, particularly for like non-meta builds and for soloing in ESO. I think this item is fantastic, and I definitely want to pick it up for quite a few characters and builds. And the reason why is, especially on stamina builds, passive healing is not quite as easy to get. Of course, there are some classes where it's easier than others. I have a whole video about this. You know, if you're a stamina sorcerer, you're easy mode. You've got massive passive healing from Critical Surge. Generally speaking, Magicka classes too, like Magicka Templar, have it pretty easy in terms of passive healing. But on the stamina side, it's not as easy to get. So classes like Stamina Nightblade, Stamina Dragon Knight, these builds usually have a little bit more challenging situations in terms of self-healing. And I think this new mythic item is actually really going to help that. So for solo players, if that's the kind of playstyle that you want, if you want to do better in places like VMA, or even the new solo arena coming out next in the Markarth DLC, having something like this is going to be really, really good for your build. And then I do think this is going to be pretty good on some solo PvP builds, maybe even 4-man dungeons. And then we'll talk about trials as well to see if this is really going to remove healers from this situation, because I know that's a concern. But first of all, how does it work? Basically, as you're doing damage, it's going to heal you back again for that 15% damage. So if I do something just basic like Venomous Claw, for example, you can see every time I have a damage tick, I do get a tick of healing as well. Now, what I noticed about this is it doesn't seem to count for things like status effects, like the poison status effect is actually not healing me. Also, I did try this with poisons. The poisons would not heal me. So it seems to be just damage that I'm doing either with light or heavy attacks or skills. Now, what's also nice is you can stack multiple damage over time effects along with single target damage to really start amping up that healing. So if I have multiple dots, for example, Venomous Claw, if I have Noxious Breath, now I'm getting 2 healing effects. I can even add a back bar dot like Deadly Cloak. Now I'm getting 3 healing effects. And once you start mixing all of that in, with also, you know, light, heavy attacks, if you have a spammable, then you can see the healing is quite nice. So what I want to do first is just look at this in terms of what a solo build can benefit from. I'm going to run this on the Stamina Dragon Knight. Like I said earlier, Stamina Dragon Knights don't have the best passive healing in the world, so I think this could make a big difference potentially. So I'm just going to be running 5 pieces of hulking, along with 5 pieces of the new medium armor set from Markarth. This is the Witch Knight's Defiance set. Gives you a lot of weapon damage, and then bonus weapon damage against poisoned enemies. And then I will be running the Ring of the Pale Order, and then just 1 piece of trainee for the extra max health. So in this first example video, I actually took the ring off, and I'm going to try to maintain my health against World Boss. This is the Dwarven Colossus from the Greymoor chapter. It's a pretty good test of overall healing because there's lots of adds, lots of AoE damage, lots of stuns, chain stuns. So you need to have pretty decent passive healing in order to deal with this if you're by yourself. Now for this first test, again, I'm not going to use the ring. Instead, I'm going to use Echoing Vigor and then also Cauterize. Those are going to be my 2 main heals. You can see with Vigor, I'm getting between 2,000 to 3,000 health every 2 seconds, depends on if it crits or not. And then Cauterize, I'm getting about 5,000 to 8,000 health every 5 seconds. So the healing is not great. I'm also not running Brawler because I just want to see what the pure healing potential is and not depend on damage shields at all. So you can see I'm doing okay. I have to keep up my Vigor constantly. That's a 10-second heal over time. So pretty much I have to keep that up, as well as Cauterize in order to survive. And you can see in many cases I'm getting extremely low health, like in the red. I think the only thing saving me, honestly, is I'm running Quick Cloak on the back bar for the major evasion. So I'm getting a little bit of damage reduction from all these AoEs, but it still is a fairly challenging fight on the solo Stam Decay. All right, and for our next example, this is where I'm going to have the Pale Order Ring equipped, and then I just took off Echoing Vigor. I'm not going to cast it at all, and I want to see if the Ring of the Pale Order can basically replace Vigor on this build, and if it does better or worse. So my only heal is the Cauterize heal. That's every 5 seconds. And of course, I do have a potion and my ultimate as well. So the nice thing about Stamina Dragon Knight using this is we do have so many dots. And for example, Noxious Breath, that's an AoE damage over time. It also does upfront damage and the AoE. So I'm actually using that quite a bit to make sure I apply dot effects to all of the multiple enemies in this fight. Then we also have the very powerful Venomous Claw. I'm making sure that's on as many enemies as possible. So I'm getting those healing ticks as much as I can, and then weaving in that Dizzy Swing, as well as still keeping Deadly Cloak up. So again, you can see I'm not running Vigor, so I haven't had to really heal other than keeping my Cauterize up every 15 seconds. And I feel that overall this fight was just a lot easier. It was more comfortable for sure. I didn't have to worry about keeping Vigor up or my healing at all. And I just felt that I was in more control because I had that passive healing and I didn't really have to worry about it. As long as I was doing damage, then my health was going back to full every few seconds, which is really nice. Now, in terms of the healing numbers overall, just to point out, this is not like an optimized build. This is just a quick solo build that I threw together. Echoing Vigor on the first fight, giving me about 700 healing per second. Cauterize actually did quite a bit better than that. That's because I had a very high crit rate for some reason on Cauterize, just pretty much got lucky. So in the next fight, Ring of the Pale Order did 1400 healing per second, so basically double the healing of Echoing Vigor just at face value. Again, don't pay attention to Cauterize necessarily. That actually had a very low crit value for this fight. So overall, my overall healing per second was just slightly higher using Ring of the Pale Order. But again, that has to do mostly with crit chance. And what we see is that Ring of the Pale Order by itself more than essentially doubles the healing that you can receive from something like Echoing Vigor. And of course, it has the benefit of you don't have to cast it at all. It's completely automatic. You don't have to think about. So it basically functions like a free crit surge no matter what class you are running, which is going to be super helpful for either new players or just non-meta builds that want to accomplish more in ESO, and I really like it. Going back to the group discussion, and does this really delete healers from the game or not? I think it gives you more options. So if you want to talk about 4-man dungeons, definitely this could help. You could run with a tank, 3 DPS. If your DPS have this ring, then you definitely don't need a healer and you're not going to suffer at all. You're going to be able to breeze through a lot of dungeon content using Ring of the Pale Order. And when you talk about trials, I think that's a different story. Yeah, on the surface, it does sound very strong. I mean, trials DPS is the highest DPS in the game, right? So if you have, let's say, 90k damage per second on your build, 15% of that is like 13,000 healing per second, which sounds insane. And then that would even increase potentially for trash pulls. So on paper, yeah, that sounds possible. But then you have to think about, what else do healers bring in terms of damage buffs and debuffs. For example, you have major and minor courage, right? Which in the Markarth DLC, those buffs are actually getting increased by quite a bit. I think major courage is like over 400 weapon and spell damage at this point. And if you don't have a healer to cast those, and if you can't receive heals yourself because you have Ring of the Pale Order equipped, then you're going to be losing out on quite a bit of damage for your build just to get that extra passive healing. But in terms of solo content, I think it's a great addition to the game. I think it adds a lot of build diversity. Classes, like we talked about before, that didn't have access to great passive healing, especially stamina builds, melee builds. This is going to open up a lot of options for them. So I hope they leave this in the game and they don't nerf it too hard. We might see them pull back a little bit on the strength of this item like they have done in the past with Thracian Stranglers. Honestly, if they pull back too much though, we're going to have the same deal and it's not going to be useful anymore. So here's hoping that they adjust it appropriately now before it comes out to the live servers. I think appropriately has to be at least above 10% healing. So anywhere between 10 and 15 is probably still going to be good. But if it gets reduced beyond that, just forget it. It's not going to be worth losing out on your monster set. So that is my thoughts on the item, at least right now. Make sure you let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Of course, if you like the video, don't forget to like it and make sure you're subscribed right here for more ESO discussion on the upcoming Markarth DLC. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe, and I will see you around in the next video.